Hello and welcome to the Department of Reinvention. In today's video, I will be upcycling an old dressing table. Now this one is maybe a few decades old. It's nothing particularly special. It's been repainted, I think, with some kind of wall paint. It was very thick and quite hard to strip off the wood. And it's been quite battered and needs a fair bit fixing to it, as well as a restoration. When I first started this project, I wasn't too sure how much of the wood underneath the paint was going to be salvageable and how much was going to need repainting over. But I was hoping that at least some of the wood underneath the paint would be a really lovely grain. So the first step was to strip off all of that old paint and see what wood was lying underneath it. I had a lot of the Osmo paint stripper left over from the paint stripping video, which you can go and watch in my feed. It's the last video on the channel. And I gave this dressing table a good coating of it. Once the paint had been softened by the paint stripper, I went in with a scraper to try and scrape off as much as I could. With most of the paint now gone, I then went in with a rotary sander using a 120 grit sandpaper and then went over it with a 240 grit. While the top of the dressing table did have quite a nice grain veneer to it, it was apparent it was starting to peel up and wasn't actually in particularly good condition. So I made the decision to strip the veneer off. To remove the veneer, I soaked a towel to get it nice and damp and then covered the tabletop with it. I went in with an iron on a very hot setting and placed it for about 20 seconds in different places, and the steam that it created basically loosens up the veneer underneath, and then I went in with a scraper to get it removed from that tabletop. The edges of the top were also veneer, so I went around the edges and did that too. At some point this dressing table had a mirror attached to it. When I got this piece, I think the mirror had been long gone. So for the little area at the back, you can see that in the start of the video, you can see the notches at the back where that mirror would have gone. So I just went in with a jigsaw and just cut off that back piece just to keep a nice straight edge at the back. I recently bought these spongy sand pads, which are really good for sanding areas of wood that aren't completely flat. So I use them on the sort of Queen Anne style legs. With these sponge sand pads, I could go over the feet and do quite a lot of really good detail sanding around them. with the veneer gone, I didn't really like how the edges looked, so I decided to get some semicircle moulding and cut that down to size, and using nails and glue attach those to the edges to give it a nice rounded look. Once this semicircle moulding was nailed in and attached, I went in with some filler just to fill in any gaps, and then sanded over that with some fine sandpaper just to get that nice and smooth. Because this piece was made with a few different types of wood, and I had a suspicion that some of the stain in the wood would bleed through if I painted directly on top of it, so I went in with the Zinsser Bin primer, which is a really good stain blocking primer. For the top coat, I decided to go in with the Craig & Rose Ottilie in an eggshell finish. It's a really lovely deep green colour, and this took about 2 to 3 coats to make it really nice and consistent. The Craig & Rose paints are traditionally wall paint. Their eggshell and matte finish are actually very, very good furniture paints. They take about a week to fully cure, but they do give a really, really lovely finish. With the main body of the dressing table finished, it was now time to move on to the drawers. I removed the old knobs from the drawers. They were a little bit battered, but some of them are in pretty good shape, so I'll keep hold of them for another project. Because these drawers were really well covered in paint, not just on the front but at the sides, I first went in with some paint stripper and a scraper. I then went in with a detailed scraper. In addition to that, I also used some Nitromore's Craftsman paint stripper. Now this stuff is quite strong. It's really good for small details, just like this one. So using that along with a really small nylon brush, if you dip it in the paint stripper and then gently brush the wood grain, it actually lifts out the residual paint that's stuck in the little wood grain. This is a really good way to get stuck little bits of paint if you've got a really lovely piece of wood but it's been painted over. This is a great way to get those tiny little pieces out. When I was finished with the paint stripper, I then went over all of the individual drawers with some white spirit just to make sure I've got all that last bits of paint stripper out. While most of the veneer on the front of the drawers were in a really lovely condition, some of the edges were a little bit chipped, so I decided to go in with some filler just around the edges and then tape off about 1 centimetre to create a little gold border. I used the Rust-Oleum metallic brilliant gold finish for this gold border. It was then topped off with a spray matte varnish. Both the veneer and the rest of the drawers I coated with Danish oil, which not only offers some really good protection for the wood, it actually also really brings out that beautiful grain on the front of the veneer. And then I finished off the drawers with these lovely textured brass knobs that I found in an antique shop. And there we have it, that old battered dressing table has now had a new lease of life. I really love the veneer front of the drawers, and I think the green Otterly paint is a really lovely match for them. I've put all of the products I used in this video in the description below. If you have enjoyed this video, it would be amazing if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel.